Today, more than ever, our nation is facing difficulties it has never known in its history. And to overcome, we need to have patriots, citizens of tomorrow.
Burkina Faso just built 500 electric buses, without foreign aid, without imports, and without anyone noticing. How did one of Africa's poorest nations pull off what even rich countries struggle to do? Let's find out. They didn't arrive in containers. They didn't come with foreign technicians. And they didn't have a Made in China label stuck on the side. Every single one of Burkina Faso's 500 electric buses was conceived, designed, and constructed on home soil, a feat that has left even seasoned engineers across the continent stunned. But what makes this even more remarkable is not just that it happened, but how it happened. This wasn't the result of a single government contract or flashy NGO pilot. It was the outcome of years of quiet groundwork, vocational schools training local engineers, communities organizing around domestic innovation, and a political leadership willing to bet on its people instead of foreign consultants. While much of Africa still relies on assembling foreign-designed vehicles under the illusion of industrial progress, Burkina Faso skipped the illusion and went for full reality. At the center of this homegrown miracle is the Ouaga 2000 Industrial Corridor, once known for half-completed infrastructure, now transformed into the beating heart of Burkinabe innovation. Here, young engineers, many in their 20s, worked in collaboration with local artisans and electrical technicians to design an electric vehicle from scratch. These weren't elite Western-educated elites flown in from abroad. These were youth trained in Burkina Faso's own vocational and technical centers, most of whom had never stepped outside the region. What they lacked in international experience, they made up for in intimate knowledge of local challenges: heat, dust, unreliable power grids, bad roads, and economic constraints. Instead of copying Western models, they reimagined what a bus should be for their terrain. The result? A vehicle that runs silently across broken roads, consumes zero fuel, and costs far less to maintain than its diesel predecessors. Even more astonishing is what they didn't need to get here. No IMF funding, no World Bank consultants, no bilateral technology transfer agreement. While most African states wait years for foreign partnerships and feasibility studies, Traoré's government simply gave local minds the freedom and support to build. And it wasn't just a technical endeavor. This was a political risk. Many advisors warned that without international backing, the project would fail, that the West would not like it, that it would be mocked. But the government pushed forward anyway. They funded the project from internal revenues, built their production plants, and allowed local teams to experiment, iterate, and adapt without red tape. Now, the result speaks for itself. A fully electric, solar-compatible fleet that doesn't just serve commuters, but stands as a national declaration. We don't need to wait for the world. We can build our future. And this isn't the end. It's the beginning. Because once you prove you can build the machine, the next question is, how do you power it without polluting the very land you're trying to protect? They built the machine. Now they had to give it life. But in a country where electricity is patchy, fuel prices are volatile, and dependency on foreign energy imports can derail entire budgets, what kind of power could keep 500 electric buses running every day? The answer wasn't found in oil barrels, diesel reserves, or even national grids. It was found overhead, in the sun. Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. Instead of plugging into the same old colonial energy models that have kept much of Africa dependent and undersupplied, Burkina Faso tapped into its most abundant and underutilized resource: solar energy. And they didn't stop at putting solar panels on buildings. They built a decentralized solar charging infrastructure specifically tailored for these electric buses, establishing a clean, renewable system that feeds directly into their operations. Each bus, part of the Itowe fleet, can travel up to 330 kilometers on a single charge, but what's more impressive is how fast they're recharged. In just 30 minutes, a bus goes from flat to full using high-efficiency solar stations installed at key transport hubs. That means no queuing at gas stations, No reliance on the grid, and no waiting hours for batteries to juice up. Instead, it's a seamless cycle of clean energy, captured by the sun, transferred to lithium systems, and stored for public mobility. This solar infrastructure wasn't outsourced either. Traore's administration had already begun investing in solar power independence in rural regions, and that expertise was brought into the urban transport system. By connecting solar microgrids with public transport corridors, they've created a parallel energy ecosystem that doesn't need to beg for fuel from foreign suppliers or crash when global prices spike. The impact? Immediate and measurable. Transport operators who once burned through thousands of CFA francs per week on fuel now report savings that go straight back into their families and local economies. Maintenance costs are plummeting too, as electric engines experience less wear and tear than their noisy, smoke-belching diesel counterparts. Then there's the environment. Ouagadougou's air, once thick with the stench of diesel, is cleaner. Noise pollution in busy intersections has dropped. The psychological effect is subtle but profound. Where there was once chaos and carbon, there is now calm and control. But the real revolution is psychological. Burkina Faso no longer relies on foreign-controlled energy markets to run its cities. And this, more than any statistic, is what terrifies the old powers. Because the moment a country can power itself without outside permission, it becomes truly dangerous, not to its people, but to those who profited from its weakness. And while most governments still tinker with renewables on paper, Burkina Faso has gone full scale, in real life, with real passengers and real economic relief. This isn't a pilot project. It's a functioning solar-powered transport system built without climate conferences, without debt traps, and broken promises from the global north. Now, having built the machines and powered them without pollution or dependency, the next challenge emerges. Can they make these buses smart enough to power an entirely new kind of African city? They didn't just build the machines. They didn't just power them sustainably. Now they've given them intelligence. Burkina Faso's electric bus revolution isn't only mechanical and solar, it's digital. Because in today's world, moving people efficiently isn't just about motion, it's about information. And that's where this story takes a futuristic turn. Each ITOUA electric bus is embedded with a smart operating system. We're not talking about standard GPS alone. These buses are equipped with a real-time data infrastructure that feeds live information to a central control network. That means every movement, every route, every stop, and even every second of idling is monitored, optimized, and refined using intelligent algorithms. This is the backbone of what President Traore's administration quietly calls Smart Burkina. It's a long-term vision where public transport is no longer a chaotic gamble, but a predictable, efficient, data-driven ecosystem. The buses serve as both carriers and sensors. They collect traffic data, street congestion levels, delay patterns, and even passenger flow, feeding it all back into a national system that's being designed to think ahead. Commuters, too, feel this transformation. A rider doesn't need to stand in the scorching sun waiting blindly for a bus. With mobile tracking systems, passengers can know in advance which bus is arriving, where it currently is, how full it is, and what time it will reach their stop. No guesswork, no frustration, just real information in real time. But it goes deeper. City planners in Ouagadougou are now using the data from these buses to identify urban pain points, where congestion forms, where roads are too narrow, and where new routes need to be opened. In effect, the buses are drawing the next generation of the city map, live, every single day. The digital infrastructure allows for future upgrades too, including facial recognition for ticketing, emergency override systems, fleet performance analytics, and even predictive maintenance alerts before a bus ever breaks down. This entire system, unlike foreign-funded smart city schemes, wasn't imported wholesale. It was coded and configured by Burkina Faso developers, many of them self-taught or trained through fast-growing local coding boot camps. What once would have taken a UN-backed project years and millions of dollars, Burkina Faso achieved using local servers, open-source software, and national will. And this smart ecosystem has another unspoken advantage: transparency and accountability. Corruption in public transport, ghost buses, fuel siphoning, and unexplained maintenance costs are now significantly harder to hide. Every bus is trackable. Every charge logged, every journey is recorded. The digital eyes never blink, and this has quietly reshaped how the transport sector operates. When systems are smart, people get smarter about how they behave around them. And perhaps most importantly, it's scalable. These systems can be applied to taxis, ambulances, agricultural machinery, and school buses. The groundwork has been laid for a fully integrated mobility grid, something few African nations have even dared to plan, let alone deploy. So far, we've seen Burkina Faso build its buses, fuel them with its sun, and now feed them with its data. But what happens when other countries want a piece of it? Can Burkina Faso remain the sole driver of this revolution, or is it about to become a continental supplier? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video, and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. What started as a domestic project, quiet, local, and almost underestimated, has now crossed borders without moving an inch. Burkina Faso's electric bus revolution is no longer just a national milestone. It's quickly becoming one of the most sought-after models of technological sovereignty in Africa. Why? Because the world is watching, and African nations are asking the one question that matters. Can we get this too? It began with curiosity. Soon after the unveiling of the Itaoué fleet, delegations from Mali, Niger, Ghana, Togo, and even Senegal made unofficial and then formal visits to the Ouaga 2000 manufacturing complex. Their engineers and transport ministers walked through the plant floors, touched the chassis, studied the dashboard software, and left with stunned expressions. Most expected some form of Chinese licensing in the background, or at least foreign parts stitched together by local workers. What they saw instead was pure Burkina Faso design, from the welding tables to the AI tracking software. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't just innovation, it was exportable innovation. And now the orders are beginning to come in. Neighboring countries with aging diesel fleets and ballooning urban populations want Itaoué buses for their streets. But they don't just want the vehicles, they want the entire ecosystem, the solar charging stations, the mobile apps, the predictive maintenance tools, and even the training programs for local mechanics. This is where things take a dramatic turn. For decades, Africa has exported raw materials and imported value-added products. Cocoa goes out, chocolate comes in, cotton goes out, branded shirts come in, oil goes out, gasoline comes in, with interest, of course. Burkina Faso is now reversing that equation. This time, Burkina Faso exports the final product. Not the ore, not the labor, not the debt, but the intellectual property. It's a full-circle shift in economic strategy. A country that once couldn't manufacture a single spark plug is now producing intelligent electric buses that other nations want to buy. Not as charity, but as premium African technology. And this is precisely where President Traoré's long-term strategy shines. He didn't just launch a bus project, he built a platform, an export-capable industrial system that other African countries can plug into. By keeping the production local, the knowledge in-house, and the design modular, Burkina Faso can now license the design, provide regional training hubs, and expand manufacturing partnerships across the continent. Imagine Itaoué buses rolling through the streets of Bamako, Accra, or Abidjan, not with a Chinese or European logo, but with the stamp, designed in Burkina Faso. Even beyond West Africa, murmurs are surfacing in East Africa, where cities like Nairobi and Kampala are desperate for cost-effective, climate-friendly mass transport. Traditional suppliers, mostly foreign, can't meet the demand without major financing, and that opens a new door for a low-cost African-to-African solution. And this time, the intellectual leverage stays on the continent. Burkina Faso is also attracting attention from impact investors, green energy funds, and infrastructure consortiums that previously bypassed the country. They're not coming with aid proposals. They're arriving with investment offers, joint ventures, and regional scale-up plans. Because this isn't just about buses anymore, it's about Burkina Faso becoming a net exporter of technology, jobs, and pride. And for a country long labeled as poor, unstable, and underdeveloped, this new reputation is transformational. Burkina Faso is no longer the recipient of experiments. It's now the model that others want to replicate. The country has, in a few short years, rewritten its role in Africa's industrial narrative from a dependent consumer to a strategic producer. The economic implications are massive. Jobs don't just stay in the transport sector. They ripple across solar energy, logistics, software, maintenance, metallurgy, and education. New industries will rise to support production and export demand. Local youth, once dreaming of leaving for France or Canada, are now lining up for engineering apprenticeships at the ITAOUA complex. And this changes something deeper. It changes imagination. Because once you build something your neighbors want, you stop seeing yourself as a beggar at the table of progress. You realize you can be the chef. So now that Burkina Faso has built, powered, digitized, and exported its electric fleet, the final question arises. What does this mean for Africa's future? And can this one fleet become a political symbol for a continent tired of waiting? When Traoré's administration rolled out the ITAOUA fleet, they released more than vehicles. They unleashed an idea whose time had come. For decades, Pan-Africanism has been discussed in speeches and summit communiques, but rarely embodied in a tangible product you can board, ride, and export. Now, with neighboring capitals queuing for Burkina-designed technology, the electric bus has mutated into something larger, a moving manifesto for economic self-determination. First, consider how the fleet dovetails with the African Continental Free Trade Area AFCFTA. AFCFTA's lofty promise, one common market of 1.4 billion people, has stumbled on the practical hurdle of connecting producers to buyers without foreign middlemen. ITAOUA's export-ready platform gives AFCFTA a real-world pilot, tariffs are removed under the treaty, transport costs plunge thanks to solar charging, and data-rich logistics streamline customs clearances. An electric bus assembled in Ouagadougou could be driven to Lomé, serviced by a Togolese technician trained in Burkina's program, and paid for in a regional digital currency now under AU discussion. In that loop, every stage of value creation stays on the continent. Second, the buses weaponize climate diplomacy in Africa's favor. For years, Western negotiators have lectured African states on emissions reductions while simultaneously blocking technology transfers or debt forgiveness. The ITAOUA blueprint flips that script. A least developed country has built a zero-emission fleet with its own hands and its sun. When the next UN climate summit convenes, Burkina Faso, and by extension any African state that adopts the model, will walk in not as a supplicant begging for adaptation funds, but as a peer showcasing a scalable mitigation solution. That moral high ground can be leveraged for fairer financing terms, sovereign carbon credit markets, and a louder voice in setting global standards for battery recycling and renewable infrastructure. Third, the political symbolism threatens old power structures inside Africa. In corridors once dominated by Francophrique patronage networks, the Ouaga 2000 factory is becoming a pilgrimage site for reformist leaders and opposition figures alike. They see in Traoré's buses evidence that sovereignty rhetoric can be paired with manufacturing jobs, not military coups alone. That emboldens civilian movements in capitals from Dakar to Kinshasa to demand their governments negotiate technology partnerships on equal footing or risk losing legitimacy. The regional ripple may well accelerate a long-awaited generational handover in African leadership, one that prizes circuitry and solar arrays over colonial-era commodity charts. Fourth, the buses catalyze financial reimagination. Banks, once wary of lending to African hardware ventures, are scrambling to reprice risk after watching Burkina Faso deploy an entire fleet without defaulting. Domestic pension funds, Islamic finance houses, and BRICS-aligned development banks are reportedly sketching term sheets for spin-off projects. Lithium-ion recycling plants in Niger, desert solar farms in Mauritania, even a Pan-Sahel telemetry satellite to enhance fleet tracking. Each deal chips away at the narrative that Africa's future must be collateralized by Western ratings agencies. Suddenly, creditworthiness is measured in kilowatt-hours generated and kilometers traveled, not centuries-old bond indices. Finally, and perhaps most radically, the ITAOUA story recalibrates African youth psychology. Until now, the continent's brightest coders and mechanical engineers were conditioned to picture success as a visa stamp and a life abroad. In WhatsApp groups from Lagos to Lusaka, videos of dust-brown buses gliding silently through Ouagadougou traffic have sparked a different ambition. Build here, export there. Hackathons are shifting themes from fintech clones to hardware-software hybrids for agritech drones, mini-grids, and yes, next-gen buses. A continent once caricatured as a recipient of fourth-hand combustion engines is suddenly flirting with leapfrogging straight into an all-electric, data-driven mobility future. None of this guarantees utopia. Scaling production will test Burkina Faso's grid logistics, its mineral supply chains, and its ability to insulate the project from partisan capture. External actors, oil lobbies, legacy bus suppliers, and neo-colonial financiers will attempt to dilute or derail the movement. Yet even if They falters tomorrow, the idea it launched cannot be recalled. Every African capital that smelled lithium instead of diesel, every commuter who tracked a bus on a locally coded app, every schoolchild who watched sunlight recharge public transport, each has glimpsed a possible world where Africa is maker, seller, and standard setter. And that, ultimately, is the revolution. 500 buses rolling through dusty streets, whispering a question louder than any speech. If Burkina Faso can do this, why can't we? Do you think more nations should do the same? Can they? Let us know in the comments section. Should they ask for Traore's help? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.